So my name's Jon Alexander. I run an organisation called the New Citizenship Project. The idea behind which is essentially to use the skills of the creative industries, but to inspire people to see themselves as participants and citizens, not just as consumers of stuff and products and services. I'm sort of hosting this panel, I guess. We're going to make it a bit of a conversation. You have four leaders of B corporations in front of you. So on my far side we have Tenison, the founder and chief executive of Jojo and Maman, Bebe, a leading boutique baby brand. Slightly nearer we have Tom Rippin, founder and CEO of On Purpose, the community of leaders at all career stages working to make for an economy that works for all. And Kajal, Odedra, the UK Executive Director of Change.org, a US B Corporation pioneering campaigning organisation, and Kajal is also author of the book Do Something, Activism for Everyone. So what we wanted to do with this, demanding more how simple choices shape our future, I think... Oh, that was an interesting combination. Demanding more how simple choices shape our future leads us a bit towards an idea of ethical consumption, of kind of we make better stuff in this room, and if people buy it, then that will change. And I think what we want to focus a little bit more on the demanding more part of this, and kind of particularly in light of some of the quite big stuff that's happening around us and what we've heard this morning and just before us. We want to kind of challenge some of that. But to start us off, I'm just going to ask each of the panelists to tell us a bit more about themselves by saying something about a choice that shaped who they are. And I guess to set the tone, my choice that I think shaped who I am was working in advertising for the first decade or so of my career, and then choosing to go with a fairly significant salary cut to go and work for the National Trust on a project that we'd created when I was working in advertising called My Farm, where we tried to hand over decision-making on a real working farm to the public by online vote and debate. And so I went to work on a farm in Cambridgeshire, which was an interesting thing, and was all about kind of getting people involved in sustainable food production, not just selling food, and that sort of led me to where I am. So with that as a little model, I might invite Laura to start us off, if you could.
I guess my choice was to stand by my convictions when running my business. I was only 26 when I launched Jojo, so I had limited experience of working for other companies. But the one thing I'd learnt was that I could not compromise my sense of morality in pursuit of profit. And at the time, that actually made me pretty much unemployable. So I had to start my own business. Now, my values were based on the fact that I had a frugal Scottish mother. Her attitude was waste not, want not. I was the youngest of 5 children, and we lived on hand-me-down clothes. And it's actually ironic to think that 22 years ago, I tried to get the British public to subscribe to using non-disposable nappies. We invested a large amount of money in it, and we failed. We had to pull the project after a few years of trying. We've relaunched it now, and hopefully this time it may succeed. It's also ironic to learn that 18 years ago, we started as one of the first manufacturers of clothing made from recycled materials. And following consumer research, we decided not to tell the public about it because we thought it would put them off. We've always used models with disabilities since our very first catalogue 26 years ago. And it's actually ironic to think that one of our larger, much larger at the time, competitors used to call us internally the ugly baby catalogue. So those are just a few examples of how I have put my convictions, or the power of my convictions, what I believe in, above profits, because all those initiatives cost us money at the time. And what I want to know is, do the customers really care now? 20 years ago, they absolutely didn't. We had to keep it secret. Do they care now? One thing about being a diverse business from the start of from the very start of the company was that I was incredibly proud of being an all-female board. In fact, at one time, we were the biggest British company with an all-female board. And it took going through the B Corp certification to realize that we weren't diverse. And do you know what? I actually I actually had to discriminate to try and find some men to come on our board.
Very good.
There you go. I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, Laura. Very good. I speak as only recently only one of now 2 members of staff at the New Citizenship, male members of staff at the New Citizenship Project, and we've been working hard to increase our diversity as well. So that's very good. Tom.
Just very briefly, 2 choices actually, and they relate to each other, and they're choices that a lot of people who come on our programs make as well. The first was that when I came out of university, and I, like many people, wanted to make a difference in this world, I figured that actually if I learned a little bit how companies work and how the private sector works, I would be able to make a bigger difference, and I went into management consultancy. But the crucial bit was that I then make a second choice, and I decided to leave management consultancy, and wanted to apply that business thinking and that knowledge that I accumulated to solving some of the world's biggest problems, and more intelligently integrating social, commercial, and environmental ways of working, ultimately towards thinking about, well, how genuinely does an economy work that is going to provide what everyone needs within the means of our planet. So those are 2 choices that I make, and we run programs which in many ways, hopefully these days, make those choices for people who come on our programs a little bit easier.
Thank you very much. Kajal.
So I have worked in the activism space for around 13 years. But I've only been working, so Change.org is a petition platform, and we're a B Corp. So a lot of people often confuse us for being a charity, which we're not. And this choice that I made was actually leaving the charity sector. So I grew up in the Midlands. My parents are immigrants, and grew up in a very white working class area, and we were one of the very few families of colour, and dealt with a lot of racial abuse on a daily basis. And I learnt from that age that people weren't really going to speak up and stand up for you. You had to do it for yourself. And so I really wanted to work in kind of campaigning and activism and helping people. And one of the things, and I did some really great work for the charities, and learned a lot in those for those charities. But one of the things that I found was that there was a real tendency in the sector to speak on the behalf of people with lived experiences. And so they were, and if people with lived experiences were brought into the work, it was as case studies. And then the other thing that I found was that it was incredibly slow and bureaucratic. And so I jumped ship when Change.org started in the UK around 2012. And one of the things that I really pride our work on is that we are a petition platform where anyone can start a campaign on what they believe in. And so we've worked with, people who are being at risk of deportation, who are speaking out for themselves, and then they're mobilizing thousands and thousands of people and using their voice. And so they're not having to lean on the privilege of those in power. And, it works. So what's been amazing is that at the time it was incredibly disruptive, and we weren't really sure if this was really going to take off. But now in the UK, we've got 17 million users. And one of the things that I do is actually work with the charity sector to help them to work with the people with lived experiences in their organisations to really properly empower them. Okay. And so now actually we have them coming to us saying, how do we do this?
Very powerful, thank you. And I think so. We've got a little bit of time to get under the skin of this. I think that the classics are the frame of demanding more. That this is to some extent the sort of demand side panel. So in a room of purposeful business, this is us going. So what is the relationship with the people out there? I cannot use the word consumer. I apologise. It strikes me as my call. And the reason I'll just very briefly explain is part of the founding of New Citizenship Project was a moment when we were involved in some research that gave people a survey of environmental and social motivations and put consumer response study on the front cover for half of the people and citizen response study on the front cover for the other half, and found that although the people were representative samples, the response, the level of environmental and social motivation was significantly lower on the consumer response study than the citizen response. And this replicates in all sorts of ways. So this is why I struggle with the word consumer. But if the people formerly known as consumers, if we could design an icon for them, that would be very powerful. But I think what we want to sort of get at a little bit is, yes, ethical consumption is a very powerful force. Yes. Okay, I think we can all agree that there's some great power to that. There's some strong increases. There's good data. This is an important thing. Yes, and is where I would love us to take this conversation, if that's all right. So I wonder if, just with that as a sort of prompt, like beyond ethical consumption, like what is the agency of business? What is the agency of the people formerly known as consumers? What is the role of business in this space? What can we do more than simply say we're making better stuff, more people are buying slightly better stuff, because that doesn't feel commensurate with the scale of the challenge. Is the framing I would offer. Disagree with me, say it is, take it further, take it different, but that would be my sort of starting proposition. How does that sound?
Yeah, can I start with, okay, so at Jojo, we are absolutely middle market. We believe that we can sell to everyone. People who are on lower incomes can buy us as a special present, as an aspirational buy, and we thankfully sell to royalty, selling them, basics. So we sit there. We want to be available to everyone, and that's very important to us. Do the majority of consumers subscribe to the fact that we are a B Corp and have the ethos of a B Corp? I categorically, to this day, say no. We know the fact. We know that our social interaction, if it's to do with one of our charities or our initiatives or our eco-initiatives or our carbon offsetting, we do not get the response from the consumer or our Jojo fans, if you want to call them that. If we talk about something cute and adorable and pretty that they want to put their babies in, absolutely, they'll go berserk for it. So, from a consumer point of view, I don't think the consumer is there yet, not the mass market consumer. Absolutely, we can all sell to each other. We are talking in an echo chamber. But what I found about being a B Corp is that I get a better quality of employee applying for the jobs. People more and more we've been a B Corp now for about 4 years, and it's particularly happening now that we are recruiting. It's really hard in our industry. We have a lot of relatively low-skilled employees in retail and in our distribution centre, but people want to know who they're working for. Yeah. So actually, those are the guys who then may go out and talk about it more.
And Tom, this is a little bit.
I mean, I would go one step further, almost. Well, not almost. I definitely would. As you can imagine, we think a lot about purpose in an organisation called On Purpose. And one of the things that really gets me about the purpose debate is that we're often talking about, well, you do this because people will buy from you, or because you will be able to attract better employees, or because even actually we'll be able to serve all our stakeholders. I actually firmly believe that the definition of purpose is not that you do it because of something. You don't do it in order to achieve something else. Purpose is your ultimate aim. Purpose is the thing we are trying to do. And ultimately, I believe we do what we do, and we need to do what we do because it's the right thing. And it's about more than ourselves, it's about more than our consumers, it's about more than I would say, even just our stakeholders. It is actually about creating that holistic system, and I know that sounds a bit abstract, but actually that's what it's about. It's creating, organizing how we produce all the services and products in our world, and how we manage to do that for everybody in a way that works within our planet.
And so just bouncing back to what I was saying, how would you describe the purpose of Jojo? Is that something you have articulated? Is that an expression?
I truly believe that the most useful thing I can do in this world is create ethical employment. And in the fashion industry, that goes all the way through. And in fact, with B Corp, we're looking into our second and third tier supply chain, something that we could never do, when as a smaller company, it's really hard to do. But those are the questions that B Corp has made us ask ourselves. So I think ethical employment is the best I can do. Obviously, we're trying to do that in a sustainable manner, but equally, the most sustainable thing would be that no one bought anything, and that wouldn't necessarily help the world economy.
Interesting. So, so coming to you in just a second, Kajal. So, one of the things we talk about in our work is the idea that if a company or an organisation has a sense of purpose, has a kind of clarity of purpose, then actually you can involve people in that. You can give them agency in that in ways that go beyond just what they buy. So, I might come back to that in a minute. But some of what Change.org is not a business selling to people in this traditional way, but
Yeah, I mean, what you've both said really resonates with me, and I think for me, it's about the society we want to live in. It's like creating the world that we want to live in. We, as individuals, have an impact on everything that it's like a butterfly effect. So we have to just be. I agree with you. I think it's about taking responsibility for the world that we're living in. So one of the things that we know, so Change.org petition platform, so you could start a petition right now on your mobile phone, and we see hundreds of petitions started every day. We don't pre-moderate them, so they go up, and then you can start sharing and campaigning. And because we have so many users now, we really get a temperature check of what trends in society and what people care about. So I'd say when we first started in the UK, about 8 years ago, people were generally campaigning and targeting their campaigns at the government, and it was usually always the Prime Minister. As if the Prime Minister, they just don't, make all the decisions. But
they're trying to.
Anyway. They would like to think they do. And then over time, we've seen that actually now people are demanding more from the companies. And so we see people targeting corporations, dramatically more than they used to. And we're seeing corporations growingly respond rapidly because they care about being good.
Can you give us an example?
I'll give you a really great example, which is really, really recent. So we've been working with these two sisters called Ella and Caitlin. They are 8 and 10. So they learn about plastics in school. And like most kids, and I definitely had this, when you learn about something in school that really just gets fire in your belly, you're like, well, what else can I do? And I think back when I was a kid, I'd probably have to write a letter, maybe write a letter and join a charity's mailing list, or write to my MP. Ella and Caitlin started a petition targeting McDonald's and Burger King to stop putting plastic in their Happy Meals, the plastic toys that you get. And they then started getting, they told their teacher, so their teacher then got the school involved. We saw the petition, so we got involved and started helping them to, educating Ella and Caitlin on what to do next with all these signers they had. We then managed to organise a petition delivery to McDonald's, and the BBC came along and filmed it. And McDonald's refused to take the petition. So there was a security guard who said, no, we're not taking it. So then you have this amazing BBC TV shot of Ella and Caitlin crying with their petition box, which was on the TV. And so then McDonald's invited them for a meeting with their CEO.
Really?
Yeah. With their CEO in a McDonald's, which I just thought was brilliant. Like, not in his office, and they had their meeting in a McDonald's, all cordoned off. And what was brilliant about, so that basically, I mean, the petition had grown to hundreds of thousands of signatures by this point, partly because it was just really compelling that these two young girls were standing up to such giants. And that's the thing that businesses need to realize, is that the consumers are becoming giants. And on the day of the meeting, Burger King had obviously got wind that there was this meeting happening. So then the CEO of Burger King FaceTimed the girls and said, we're going to scrap plastics, toys. We're going to, and they called it the Great Meltdown. They're going to melt all the plastic. They're going to stop putting plastic toys in their Happy Meals. And so they basically trumped McDonald's, and they won. But the other point I just wanted to quickly make was that it's what I'm seeing, and is that not only are consumers targeting brands that they are consuming from, but also employees are campaigning and whistleblowing.
Interesting.
So we've had some amazing campaigns by Sainsbury's staff, B&Q staff, starting petitions anonymously because of practices internally.
So I guess what I want to ask you, and then bring Tom in just after that, what I want to ask you is that this is a room of to some extent, activist businesses.
Yeah.
Right. So not necessarily as recipients, but how should they be interacting with this sort of thing?
So I take this kind of thinking to my own business, like the business I'm running, and also our global wider organization, because I think it's the thing that I was saying about it's everything that you do. So it's the way that you're producing, so the way that you're designing your product, Like our product team in San Francisco is not full of white men like most other product teams in Silicon Valley, because the way you design your product really has an impact on how that product is interacted with on the other end, but also just like how you treat your staff, the way you pay them. So we've actually just recently gone through a really rigorous kind of pay overhaul to make sure that all of our staff are fairly paid, and we're going to be moving towards transparency of pay. So I think it's also about, it's not just if you're creating something ethically, that's great, but then also are you managing your staff ethically?
And I think that the certification standards across B Corporation do address a lot of those sorts of things. Tom, you wanted to come in there?
I think one of the things, in response to your story, which is amazing, I love that thought of McDonald's and not letting them in. But, this is, I think, one of the potential traps of us relying on ethical consumerism is that we respond. And actually, we as businesses, and especially the businesses in this room, we actually need to lead. We need to not just sit here, and I think as you did, 26 years ago, we need to think, well, actually, what is the most important thing that I could do with my business? What is the best way that I can run it? And then, to an extent, actually, persuade people that this is how things should be. And I sometimes worry with ethical consumerism is that we slightly outsource some of that responsibility. So, well, they'll buy what they want to buy, and we'll follow that lead.
I suppose the tension, though, I guess, to Laura's example is that you've almost gone, actually, not enough people care, so we're just going to do the right thing and fine.
But that care comes in various ways, because my Jojo fans really care about how much money they've got to spend on their children, because they really aspire to having our products, and sometimes that's something they're saving up for. And the fact that our clothes are well made and can be handed down from child to child actually means that they've retained their value. So in fact, the Jojo Pre-Love Facebook group has 44,000 people in, and people buy the clothes as investments. In fact, some of these clothes then they can sell on at a profit to other Jojo fans, which is kind of ironic. But they're not buying the clothes always thinking, oh, I'm doing the right thing, I'm buying good quality, I'm buying less and I'm buying better. But they're thinking that item's retaining its value, so I get the end result.
I mean, I think one of the things I'm particularly interested in is whether we can get to a place where actually people are participants in the changes we're trying to make, and you're building that sense of age. I mean, those kids, and 8 and 10-year-old, they're going to feel they can change the world.
And that has a knock-on effect. So not only those kids, but then the school kids that they all go to school with. And I see this, that it kind of, you end up with lots of copycat campaigns from other people that look like that. And that's why it's really important for us that, the people that we kind of amplify and the stories that we tell to the media about the campaigners don't just mimic the people that they see on TV. And actually, it's a whole diverse type of person, because you can often, otherwise it's just going to be the middle-class types who are campaigning for more ethical consumption, who are maybe pushing for better pay. But actually, this needs to actually help the most vulnerable people.
To your point of agency, I think that's really important, and we can have that wherever we are. And I think as employees or as colleagues, we have huge agency as well. And just a short story, if you don't mind. A group of kind of sustainability enthusiasts, 20, 30 years ago, working in this massive, big corporate, which had a mainly oil-based product. So it was environmentally pretty bad. And they'd clubbed together, and they had their little sustainability club, and they'd managed to get finally a little appointment with the chairman, this kind of big guy who really didn't care much about this stuff, but eventually he had to kind of meet with them. And then this was all set up, and actually, it didn't even happen. The chairman got waylaid, he couldn't come. But they left him a book on his table. And this chairman, who didn't care less about this stuff, read this book. And that man was Ray Anderson, who's the chairman of Interface, which I'm sure has been at the forefront of this stuff, and now is not just zero harm, but has embarked on actually trying to improve our climate in what it does. And that was just a small band of people who didn't even manage to have the meeting and left a book on someone's table. And you can have massive agency even as that.
So I mean, we're hugely short panel truncated, and I want to give you a chance to leave the room with maybe a challenge to think about. I guess while you just compose your thoughts, my one comes back to, I think, this idea that actually if we start from a sense of purpose, so I mentioned an organisation that we're huge fans of, a Dutch news brand called The Correspondent, which has now launched its US and English language version in the US. They talk about their purpose being to unbreak news. And to really help people understand what's going on in the world as citizens, rather than just sort of tell them the man bites dog story as consumers. And they have this lovely thing where they say we don't call them readers, we call them expert contributors. We don't call them journalists, we call them conversation leaders. So that the whole model of that organisation is really about building agency of people in the world. So my challenge, and I think it's possible for food companies, for all sorts of companies, for Jojo, I'd love to get under the skin of that. But I think it's possible, and I would challenge the challenge I would like to leave the room with is something like, what are you trying to do in the world that's so big that you need as many people as possible to get involved to help you do it? Because I think it is possible to think of businesses in that way, and I think if we can do it, then we can develop a different level of relationship. So that would be my kind of challenge to people. Think about your purpose at a level that is, what are we really trying to do, and how could people be part of it? Are there challenges that you would like to set? They can be less or more, or?
I think the challenge that I'm going through at the moment, which is really, really hard to get to grips with, is the mixture between emergency aid and sustainable practices. And I'm a trustee of a charity based in Mozambique. Cyclone Kenneth literally wiped out our charity headquarters, where we've been working for 12 years and have 12 employees, leaving absolutely nothing. This little area of northern Mozambique, no one knew about it. There weren't any other NGOs apart from the Aga Khan a few years ago. Suddenly the world's NGOs descended to help out, and they came by helicopter and they brought plastic. Our communities, 36,000 people on beaches, have no rubbish collection. The world's NGOs came, incredibly useful aid. People were desperate. Branded plastic all over these beaches, rubbish. And I was traumatized, because what did I do? We were helping facilitate them. We knew the communities well. I didn't want them to come in by helicopter. I didn't want them to bring their plastic, but people were desperate. What do we do?
That's a challenge.
That's so interesting. I'll go quickly because I know we've run out of time. I often find in businesses, and we're all part of the B Corp family, and it's we can feel good about because we're part of this club that has told us, yep, tick tick tick, you're doing all this great. But there are certain levels of there is okay that you're kind of you're not one of the bad guys, but it's also, is it good enough? And often I find that the answer for not having diverse enough staff or not paying staff completely fairly and transparently is that it's not critical right now. We'll get to sustainability first. We'll get to this point first, and then we'll do that. And so my question is, why wait? And is it good enough?
Thank you.
I think mine is very similar. I see a lot of organizations who do good, but they do good that is possible. And for me, I think the challenge is not to think about the art of the possible, but to think about the art of the important.
And possibly the art of the necessary. Very
Indeed.
good. Thank you very much. That's us.